that we can manufacture this liquid soap and sell so that you can sustain the period project.
The pad for the girl child. So if you buy a disposable soap every month, you will get sanitary pad. Thank you.
We saw a reusable and sanitary pad. That day it was amazing. I like that day. Yes, I used it. It was good. I like it. I have been involved in the stereotype, the gender stereotype, and it was amazing. I like that. They were saying that girls are weak, and we believe that we girls are not weak. Madam Thea wants us to express our confidence level and prove to the world that we are not weak. We can make it.
Violence is a treatment, outrage, or something that causes injury or harm to another person, and there are forms of violence. We have sexual abuse, incest, female genital mutilation, widowhood rights, child marriage, pedophilia. And men, we should focus on the men more and the women too more. We should give more opportunities to both of them. And what men can do, women can do better. And what women can do, men can do better. Thank you.
So we are pleading from the elders, teachers, and everyone to help us to stop violence against women and against the men. Thank you.
So what should you do? You shout. How would you scream? Okay. So at least we all saw what happened there. It's about sexual harassment.
Actions do you see in your communities or societies that shows that they are what? Harmful traditional practices. So I'll give one example. An example is female genital mutilation, where the clitoris is being cut. With this instance, the person can bleed severely and the person can lose her life.
Madam Thea, he asked some career members to come here. The nurse was there, and teachers was there, and a veterinary doctor was there. They encourage us that we should be both to what decision we made. That if you are going to, you said that you are going to be a surgeon, be both to that, work towards that goal of yours.
It is no easy task to take the road travel, but at the end of the day, appreciation is worth it. Remember, the most interesting stories are not those who had it easy. We rise, we fall, but what is important is that we find our inner strength to stand tall. Women, know your value, wear your crown. Female empowerment is a must. On behalf of the Ignorant Girls Club members of Ahenkorah, we say a very big thank you to Edu Sport for fighting the good fight. Thank you.
We are going to shine.
Okay, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depends on where you are joining us from across the globe. You are welcome to EduSports Ignite Talk. My name is Cynthia Mawina Kumasa. I'm the Educate and Events Coordinator at EduSports, and I'll be your host for today. So today's talk is with a very renowned expert in the field of literacy, and it will be on the theme, Bridging the Literacy Gap, Engaging Programs and Digital Tools for Every Learner's Success. Bridging the Literacy Gap, Engaging Programs and Digital Tools for Every Learner's Success. Today's session would roll out in this format. First, we would have a little history of EduSports, what EduSports Ignite Talks are about. We will then get to meet our amazing guests for today's session, have the talk, have a Q&A, and then some announcements would follow. So at this juncture, because we are pressed for time, I would call on Farida Yusufu, who is our head of communications, to give us a little information about EduSports and then introduce our guests to us. Farida, over to you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Deborah, for joining us. We're very happy to have you. Sorry, my camera is off because I don't have power and it's dark. But not to worry, I'll do the introductions. So a little bit about EduSports. I think everyone here pretty much knows a bit about EduSports, but maybe for the benefit of Deborah, who knows a bit about EduSports anyway, I will tell us. So EduSports connects, trains, and equips our volunteers. We have over 3,000 volunteers, and we call our volunteers catalysts because indeed they are change makers in their communities. And these volunteers are in communities all over Ghana, a few in Kenya, and they coordinate different programs. So we have the literacy program, which we call Edulate. We have the STEM program, which we call EcoSTEM. We also have the female empowerment program. So if you joined early, you would have seen the video that was being played. So that's Ignite Equity Club. And then we have early years program as well, which is called EduKids. So these are the main clubs that we have in our communities. And it's a collaborative approach and community-led. So our volunteers are at the heart of the change that happens in these communities. And we use spaces that we call sports. These are like educational spaces, and we have about 50 in total, mostly in Ghana, about 2 in Kenya. And so far, we have offered, or we've been able to give young learners the opportunity to have transformative educational experiences in these sports, over 10,000 learners. So about our Ignite Talks, what we are having here today is an Ignite Talk, and it usually happens for different themes. So today is literacy focused, but we also have different ones. Sometimes it's STEM, sometimes it's female empowerment, sometimes it's early years literacy. And today the focus is literacy. But our Ignite Talks are free, so anyone can attend, and they're usually talks that are meant to help our volunteers do the work that they do, this life-changing work that they do in the different communities. So they empower volunteers, staff members, and wider stakeholders who are invited to come and attend these talks. And we work with learners, young minds in this community. So we need these kinds of talks that would develop us as change makers in our communities. They're free to attend, so you can look out for them. We always have at least one every single month. So our guest today is already here, and she is, I call her Deborah. I've known Deborah personally for some time, but for those of us here in EduSports, we have Deborah Ahenkorah Osei-Agyekum. Deborah is a social entrepreneur and literacy advocate who started her first education organization as a teenager. She has spent the past 10 years or more exploring solutions for eradicating childhood literacy challenges in Africa. She's the executive director and co-founder of the groundbreaking children's literacy NGO called the Golden Baobab, and founder of African Bureau Stories, a publishing and multimedia social enterprise that publishes some really amazing books. So welcome, Deborah. I'll hand over to Cynthia now to take it over from there.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for that introduction, Farida. Deborah Ahenkorah Osei-Agyekum, please, you're welcome once again. I'll be leading the discussion with you. We look forward to hearing the great insights you have for us. So please, get a pen and a paper if you're analog like me, or your digital tools, and get ready to take some notes that is most definitely going to change your impact in whatever literacy space you are in the world. All right, let's get straight to it because of time. Now, Deborah, I'd like to find out, the first thing I saw when I looked you up was literacy. You are an author, you're a literacy person, and you're an activist. I'd like to find out, why literacy? What's the story with literacy when it comes to Deborah Ahenkorah Osei-Agyekum?
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. My son might be walking around me, which he shouldn't be walking around me. So
We are happy to have him join.
Yeah. So yeah, my name is, you guys have introduced me. I'm very happy to be here. I'm so excited about EduSport's work, and more so I'm excited about the work of the Catalyst, because institutions exist with a cause in mind, but it's the people who believe in that cause who lend themselves, their time, their resources, their energy, their ideas to that cause that actually make the impact happen. So there will be no EduSports without people like you guys who are here to make the change and make the difference happen. So I consider it an honor to be here with you guys. So thank you. I'll jump straight to your question, Cynthia. Why literacy? So whenever literacy, because I think it's one of the greatest propellers to impact in the world, right? So when a child is born, Levi, one second. So yeah, so when a child is born, they are born into a vacuum, right? Unless we teach them things, right? So the things that we give a child, that we teach a child, is what determines what that child can do and be and become, right? So if you think about it, like it's almost like food, right? As we feed the child's body, because without feeding the child's body, the child is going to die. We also feed the child's mind, because without feeding the child's mind, who are you raising, and how are you equipping that person to become beneficial and useful for themselves and then also for society? So for me, literacy is one of those, especially for children, it's one of those things that we sometimes overlook, but for me, it's probably one of the greatest propellers for changing the world, because there are lots of things that we cannot change about our present society, but the future is up for grabs. If we raise our children right, if we give young people the right tools, they can change the future in a way that we cannot, because the future is yet to be determined. So I guess it's that propensity to make an impact is why literacy, I think, is very important to me.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for that intro. Now, we would all agree that there's an existing literacy gap in the world. And this is caused by different things, by socioeconomic background, their learning styles, disabilities, and a lot more other causes. But let's move straight to the theme for today, bridging the gap. What strategies can we put in place to make reading and writing enjoyable? What interactive activities can we put in place to make reading and writing enjoyable?
Okay. That's a great question, Cynthia. I guess that's the purpose for EduSport's work, and it's the reason why we're all here today, right? We wouldn't be a part of, you guys wouldn't be a part of EduSport's work if you didn't believe in it, and I wouldn't be here speaking with you if I wasn't aligned with that cause. So we are all on the same page. That's established, right? Now, before we even, so let's talk about a race, right? A Formula One race. I'm going to try and make this part interactive, so I'm going to need you guys to work with me here. You might have to unmute and shout out some answers as I ask these questions. So let's say we are at Shiashi in Accra, okay? And there's a Formula race from Shiashi to 37, right? And it is our job to let that Formula One race happen. At the moment, there's absolutely nothing share sheet to 37 is a desert. There's absolutely nothing there, right? And we have been called upon to bring that vision of a formula race between Shashi and 30. Did I say 37? Okay, Shashi and 37, right? If you know Accra. So what will have to be in place for that Formula One race to be possible? I'd like to hear some ideas. There's no such thing as a wrong answer. So just shout any idea you have. Every idea is probably right. I'd like to hear from you guys.
Okay, please, if you can't come off mute, feel free to share in the chat section. I'll read out your answers for you.
The road to drive one.
Yeah, we'll need a road. That's correct. Anyone else?
We need a means of transport to take us across the.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, it's a race. So how are you going to race if you don't have a car, right? So we'll need a means of transport. Yeah, there'll be rules around how the race should be run. That's absolutely correct. Anything else? Vehicles for the race? Absolutely, William. We need drivers. We need humans ready to sit in those vehicles. Anyone else? Probably need spectators to cheer the drivers on. There's no great race without cheerleaders. Anything else? One more thing that we're going to need for this race. Guidelines, mechanics, first aid, excellent. Yeah, we're going to need all of those things, right? So this is to point out that the impact we want to see, the race we want to hold, it doesn't happen unless certain things are in place, right? We'll need an ambulance. Yep. Formula One is a dangerous sport. So nothing you want to see can happen in a vacuum, right? We're talking about gaps, right, in learning and in literacy. When there's a vacuum, if we come and there's a desert, can we have the Formula One race without a car, a road, rules, drivers, people?
No.
And as users, we don't see what those facets are, right? If I just show up at the race, or you turn on TV and there's a Formula One race going on, you just watch. Maybe you won't even watch. You walk away, right? But what you're not realizing is that for that race to have happened, several things were put in place. There was once a vacuum, and roads were created. Humans decided that vehicles would be created, and those vehicles were advanced to become sports cars. And those sports cars found sponsors, and Formula One drivers were trained. And once those drivers were trained, a location was decided upon, and cheerleaders, different facets before that vision will be realized. Once we start to think around facets and understand that vacuums can become visions, but different facets have to come together to make it work. Really delving into our power as change makers, right? So we look at the literacy gap, and it's easy to gloss over it and say, oh, give a child some books. Is it as simple as that? Or, oh, get a teacher. Is it as simple as that? Right? Because the gap is demonstrating a vacuum. For that vacuum to be filled, several happen. And when catalysts start to think about that, then their solutions are robust, right? Because you start to think around the components that make the whole, right? So let's say I have a 7-year-old who was very determined to be a part of this call, but has unfortunately been sent to his room. And when he was growing up, I was determined that he would love books, right? But at that point, he was 0 years old. So how does he suddenly love books? Today, he loves books. He reads huge chapter books. But when it was a vacuum, he didn't just jump to come and love books. First, we started with the baby books. He didn't like it. Then when I had those books, of course, he couldn't read. So I would read to him. But he couldn't always, once you finish reading the words, it's not always interesting. So I thought, oh, how can I make it interesting for him? Then we'll look at the pictures, right? Oh, I want to read to him in multiple languages. So I'm reading sometimes in Twi, I'm reading sometimes in English. Sometimes he wants me to read, I'm not available. So I'm reading in, sometimes I give him audio books through my phone for him to listen, right? Or when he's finished reading the books that he has, he wants more. Okay, how can I find a library that he can go to, right? What I'm trying to say is that when you develop that capacity in your mind to see that vacuums become when diffs are connected, you don't need anybody to show you the way. Because once you know the problem and you understand the solution, none of us went to Formula One driving school, unless somebody here is a Formula One expert. I don't know the first thing about Formula One, but we were able to collectively come up with what it takes to some degree to take that desert land to a Formula One race, right? So in the same way as catalysts, a child in a community who has never seen a book like books. So as for books, I mean, it's not my thing. Oh, I prefer tablets. Or it's not interesting. Oh, books are punishment. The problem we have, right? That's the gap. And then what we is a child that loves to read, or it's a child that sees that books are a way for them to gain the knowledge that for the world. There are 1,001 ways to solve that problem. But the first step is a mind that really thinks about things in terms of connecting dots and thinks about things in terms of facets. Because often a one-track solution doesn't cut it. And when we don't have that mindset, we try the one-track solution and then it doesn't really work and then we stop. Oh, okay, Formula One, okay, we need a road. You finished the road and you didn't connect the road. And you didn't connect to, so I guess what I'm trying to impart on us is that one onus of impact on ourselves, it's actually not very complicated. Because then we just need to now trigger our brain to think of connecting dots. And then once we start to connect the dots, the gap starts to be filled. That's the long answer to your question, Cynthia.
Okay, sure. So we are connecting the dots in order to fill the gap. Okay, so I'm going to pick on one dot I noticed in your submission. You mentioned how you were very involved in your son's learning. And I want to expand that. How can parents and the community at large be involved to ensure that literacy is achieved?
Yeah. So this example I gave is me and my son, but it could have been me and my nephew, obviously as my child, right? But if I didn't have a child and it was a nephew, or if I didn't have a nephew and I was a catalyst and I was a student in my edgy sport, or I was a teacher and it was someone that I cared about. So there's a human and a child, an adult and a child, right? And the adult wants to impact the joy of reading on the child. What would we say is the first thing the first thing that needs to, there's a human and there's a child. What is the first thing that needs to happen? What's the first dot? What would we say is the first dot? Because lots of people have children and those children may not love to read. And lots of adults have children in their lives, but they are not deciding that those children should read. So what's the first dot?
I would like to say interest. Finding the interest.
Interest? Whose interest?
The interest of the child.
Okay, finding the interest of the child. Okay, before you find the interest of the child, what are you trying to achieve with the child?
I think the desire to want to, like teach the child or impact in that child's that habit of reading or,
Yeah.
Kobe says leading by example.
Before you lead by example, you need to make the decision that this child is going to want to read or this child is going to learn to read. I'm sure we all know Serena Williams, right? And we may know snippets of that story. She wasn't born a tennis player. Her father once saw on TV that some young girl had gone to play a tennis match, and when she won, I think she won $40,000. And at that point, $40,000 was, I think, his annual salary or more than his annual salary. So he was like, what? One person can play one match and win $40,000. Lie, my children will play tennis. So immediately the vision was born. Without that vision being born, Serena Williams would not be the tennis player that we know today. So that's the first dot, right? And I'm re-emphasizing because really that's the formula. That's the formula for impact. It's the dots, right? So the first dot is the vision. So the father created a vision. Actually, maybe even before the vision, the first dot is caring, right? You have to care enough about the subject. You have to care enough about the child to even have the vision, right? So you care and then you have the vision. And then once you have the vision, you begin to find the resources, right, that you need. So for me as a parent with my child, I was determined that my child would love to read because I knew the impact that it would have on the child, but also in many ways, the impact that it would have on me, right? So I found the resources that I would need. I found books. I found allies, people who would teach me how they had done it. Maybe they had children who were older. And then I made the time. I made the time to invest in the child. And then I was consistent, right? I was consistent. We don't read once a month or once every 4 months, once every 2 months. It's a daily affair, right? And today that my son likes to read, it takes so much weight off of me. Oh, I want to watch TV. There's no TV, please go and pick your book and read. The boy can be in the room reading 1 hour, 2 hours. I would have had to be entertaining him, or he would have been, wasting and watching TV. And the thing with entertainment that regulated is that once they start to watch, I'm not sitting next to him. Who knows what he'll watch next, right? Even in terms of parenting now, it's become a big asset for me because and again, if you think along the dots and you start with a vision, nobody needs to show you the way. Serena Williams' dad wasn't a tennis pro. He wasn't a strategist who knows how to create strategies. He was a father who cared about it and had a vision. And he connected the dots. He realized that, okay, so apparently he sat down and he created a 40-page document as to how this child was going to become a tennis pro. And he figured the dots. He himself would have to learn how to play tennis, coach them. He would have to find places for them to go so that they would learn how to play tennis. They would need clothes, wouldn't they? They would need tennis shoes and tennis clothes. They would need to be watching tennis. They would need to understand the rules of the game. Before they can understand the rules of the game, he needs to understand the rules. So he figured out all the dots, and then he just started to move. And today we have Serena Williams. And he wasn't he wasn't like a genius dot connector. He was a father who cared and had a vision for their child. So again, I'm just really trying to demystify what it takes to create the change that we want to see. It's really not rocket science. It takes people like us who care and who make a decision. This child in my EduSport program, I'm giving you 2 years. You will like books. Then ask yourself, okay, where am I going to start from? This child, what do they like? They like animals. Okay, let me look through the books. Where can I find a book about animals? Okay, we don't even have books about animals. Okay, where else can I find? Oh, let me even go on YouTube. Let me search books about animals. Let me go on Google. Let me search books about animals. You find, okay, let me open the read. Oh, I don't like this book. It's boring. If it's boring, okay, what could make it interesting? Maybe I can give him a challenge. Oh, read it. When you're done, I'll give you a reward. That's one of the things that works with my son. Oh, mommy, I don't want to read this book. It's too much. Oh, you don't want to read. Why don't you want to? Okay, you finish. Try and finish. Come for a reward. Oh, will I get a reward? Yes. Then the child will finish it. Right? Nobody has to come and teach me this. Sometimes also the circumstance teaches you, right? You don't need an outside. The feedback that you get while you're connecting one dot to the other will show you what your future dots need to be. So yeah.
Sure, thank you so much. So I've been thinking about the angle of interest. You said we should care enough about the cause in the child, and then we should create the vision. So at EduSports, all catalysts care enough about the cause in the child, and that's why the vision has been created. And we have found resources which are helping the catalysts in the sports run the sports. But now we look at the interest of the modern day learner, and we realize that we are in the digital era. So moving towards technology is what is the order of the day. So I'd want to find out, can you share how we can leverage technology to promote literacy? How can we leverage technology to promote literacy?
Yeah. The answers all come back to the dots. We are going to keep working with the dots because once we're done, it is the dots that will equip all of us to move to our next stages, right? And the work that we want to do. I think technology is not an end goal, and technology is not a solution. Technology is a vehicle. Right? You're not going to technology because technology is amazing or because technology is what everybody's doing. You're going to technology because technology can help you to achieve something, right? Serena Williams' dad, maybe in today's era, he was creating his 40-page plan. He was able to create it without technology, right? Back in the day, because he didn't have access to technology to watch the sport and learn this, and then the kids also watched on TV, right? But the point wasn't the TV. The point was what he was watching on TV. Because if he had the TV and he was watching golf, Serena Williams would not be a tennis star. If he had the TV and he was watching news, they would know a lot about what is happening in the world, but they will not be tennis stars. So sometimes technology can be inundating because it can do so much. A TV can show you so much, but a TV watching tennis by a man with a vision to turn his children into tennis sports stars is what makes the difference. So right now, by God's grace, technology isn't mysterious. We all have a phone in our hands. But some people are holding these phones and doing magical things. Some of us are also holding these phones and watching social media and not doing much. And it comes down to the dots. Because you don't have a dot that you are connecting to technology, that is why when you pick up the phone, You are everywhere. The phone now tells you what you should do. Social media tells you what you should do. It tells you what you're looking on the phone, and that's what will help them. So I'm not in a position to understand exactly what the child in your EduSport program will need. And that's besides the point. I don't have to be, but you just need to understand that the technology in your hands that you have access to, even through a phone, is the greatest tool you can have. So what problem do you need it to solve for you? For example, when the children come to your EduSports program, they are not interested in the books at all. They are causing noise. What do you do? How can technology solve that problem for you? Let's brainstorm. You have technology as a dot in your future. You have children in an EduSport program who do not care about books. What are the dots? What could you possibly do?
Okay, so I would leverage on certain educational apps which are interactive. So I would use that to get the children involved in it, because some of these apps are very bright colored, and colors attract children. So I'll add that to the session to get their focus, and then afterwards we can move towards the books.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Any other idea?
As usual, you can share in the chat. I'm happy to read it out for you.
I'm very patient. I'll repeat the question in case you've forgotten. So you have children in an EduSport program who aren't interested in reading, and you have technology. How can you begin to bridge that gap? What are some ideas? And Cynthia said you can look for apps, brightly colored apps, engaging apps.
Okay, Yvonne, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
I will employ technology by, for instance, at the KG level, we learn sounds. So we also have Jolly Phonics books, which might not be so interesting to the learners. So what I will do is, with the sounds, I can download the bright colored ones like Madam Cynthia just said, with the songs, they go with songs. Every sound go with a particular song. So, and the actions too. So what I did, or what I will do is, I will put them on the on computer using the PowerPoint. Then with the transitions, I'll just arrange them accordingly with the 8 steps that we use to teach the sounds. So as I do that, I give a command to the laptop. Then it starts from the beginning by itself to the end. And once it contains colors, actions, and songs, you see that it attracts their attention. And they are so interesting. So the learners stick to it. And instead of you attention goes into it. And at the end of the day, they want to watch more. So that's how I will employ technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne.
Yeah. Great submission, Yvonne. William also says you can equally use reading game apps. These apps are designed in a way to engage the child to read. Okay. Yeah, awesome. So we've come up with lots of ideas, but I think there's a problem here. The problem here is the children aren't engaged. And we actually don't know why they are not engaged, right? And that sometimes is the problem with technology, is that because it seems like a ready resource, we jump to technology without always understanding the problem we have, and therefore not being super clear about how technology can solve that specific problem. Maybe the children are not interested in reading because maybe they can't read, in which case then Madame Yvonne's solution of starting with Jolly Phonics and teaching them how to read would be a way to employ technology. But if the person already knows how to read, but maybe the problem is they don't find books that are interesting to them. My son, for example, loves animals. So I love mystery. So when I was young, I loved mystery books. Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. We go to the library and I'm like, oh, let me pick these Nancy Drew and Hardy. Right? So if I bring technology and I'm using the technology to show him mystery, we'll be sitting here saying that, oh, this child is not interested in reading. But the real thing I needed to solve for in his case was interest. What is he really interested in? Maybe for other children, it will be distractions, or maybe bad advice in their life, right? So they don't even see the value of reading, or they don't understand how. So then that's what you'll be solving for. Then maybe you can go online. There's a story about a guy called William Kwamba. He was a Malawian guy who found a book in his village about how to build a windmill. So he used the book and he built a windmill, and that windmill was able to provide electricity for his village. He became well known because of that invention. He got a scholarship to go to the US. He's written a book about his invention, and they created a movie about him, right? Maybe something like this. You can use technology to show your children something like this so that they see, so this book thing, this reading thing that they are telling me about, this is what it can do for me in the world. And that's what will unlock the solution. Because you see, sometimes we are not getting the solutions we want because we are deploying we are not getting the outcomes we want because we are deploying the wrong solutions, because we don't understand the problem. If you have malaria and you drink paracetamol, I'm sorry, you can drink 50 paracetamols, but it will not solve your malaria. So technology is the medicine, is the drug. It can dispense lots of drugs. Is it amoxicillin that you want? Technology can give you. Is it para? Is it chloroquine? Is it what? You know? But if you are not aware what is actually ailing the child, what is actually the roadblock, and sometimes you don't even know how to come up with the roadblock, then technology can help you to solve that. So you can go online and say, what are some of the reasons why children are not interested in learning or learning to read, or why children don't like reading, to give you lots of answers. And then you look through the answers and you'll be like, no, this one doesn't apply to me. This one does, perhaps this could be what is going on here. And then that becomes where you start from to actually solve the next stage of the problem. So again, you know, I feel like if we are really serious about impact, we need to go into granular details about how we actually solve the problems. And it comes back to connecting the dots. If you first example of the common race, if there's a vacuum and a desert, and you don't understand that first you need a road, and you just rush off to finding sponsors for your Formula One race, or you rush on to, let's go and bring the cheerleaders, because Formula One, you need spectators. Spectators by the desert road. The road wasn't built, the cars weren't sorted. You have the cars. Oh, let's bring the spectators. Where are the drivers? And have the drivers been trained? The most impactful change makers are problem solvers at very granular levels. Problem solvers in the small. A child who does not know their phonics and therefore cannot read, I'm sorry, they will not like to read. A child who likes specific things, but if you give me science fiction, I'm sorry, you think that I don't like books. But in fact, I really like books. You just haven't given me what I like. So for us to become effective, we have to become granular in our problem solving and very intentional, very meticulous in our problem solving. And that's the only way we can actually damage us, because it becomes a distraction and we think we're solving the problem, but we are actually not solving the problem. Because the thing right now is that access to technology, right? Other parts of the world, they have access. They have this, they have books, they have this. By God's grace, technology has come, and now is the true equalizer. The situation has been equalized to a large degree. Now the difference between those who achieve their goals and those who do not achieve their goals is how you solve your problem. You are the hospital. The hospital can give you any drug. The problem is you don't know your pockets. That's why you're still sick, right? So now we have access to technology. It can give us any of the solutions. What we have to become masters at diagnose. We have to become masters at diagnosis. We have to really know at no point in time, what is the problem with my EduSport program? My fellow in the other town has a program that's thriving. Mine isn't. What is the difference between mine and theirs? What is really going on? I have 3 children. I want to really care about them. I want to really make an impact in them. Let me get to know them. Let me really understand where they are at. And then exactly the key that will lock things for the next level. That's what really brings the impact we need to see.
Thank you, Deborah. The breakdown is very clear. So it's not just about having access, but how does that access meet the dots of interest, your vision, your resources all together to give you the expected outcomes. That's great. Okay, so we are very pressed for time. I have a whole mountain of questions, but I wouldn't want to dominate the conversation. So looking at the limited time we have, I would want to open the floor for questions from our catalysts on the call. Please, does anyone have a question they'd like to ask Deborah? Is there anything on your mind you are wondering about? We are talking about bridging the literacy gap, engaging programs and digital tools for every learner's success. Please feel free to ask either via the chat or coming off mute. There are just a few spaces you will meet Deborah, and this is one of them. So please take advantage of this August presence because it may not be available any other time. Any questions, please? Okay. I'll give 30 more seconds for us to put our thinking caps on. If we don't have any questions, Deborah, I have another for you. Okay, so the time is up. I'm taking back the conch. Okay. Yeah, so Deborah, please, we'd like to find out. So a portion of our work requires social media advocacy. And I was wondering, are there some tips you have to share with us on how to create engaging social media content for literacy advocacy? Are there any tips to share on how to create engaging social media content for literacy advocacy?
Yeah. So, I would deploy the same tool. Are there any thoughts on literacy for children with learning difficulties? Okay. I will deploy the same tool of diagnosing the problem, right? So the strategy that someone with a thriving EduSport program needs for social media is different from the strategy that someone who doesn't even have an EduSport program might need for social media, or points. So deploying the strategy of breaking down and connecting the dots, the first thing would be diagnosing the problem. Like, what do we need social media to solve for us? We need it to, some people only use social media for accountability for themselves, right? I decided that I'm going to read 12 books this year, and I don't have an accountability partner, so I'm going to put on social media. Hi guys, this year I'm going to be reading 12 books. This month, this is the first book I'm going to be reading. Catch you next February 1st. I'll put the next book up February 1st. This is my next book. Catch you March 1st. Right? The strategies that person needs is very different from someone who wants to use social media to raise money for their literacy work. It's also very different from someone who maybe wants to use social media to equip parents with tools that they can use to support their children in literacy at home. So the first thing is diagnosing your problem, right? What exactly am I trying to use social media to solve for? Then the next of technology, right? Who am I trying to connect with on social media to solve this problem? And what do I need to tell them? What do I need from them, right? To be able to solve this. What's my call to action? So again, once you deploy the connecting the dots solution mechanism, is connecting the dots is a way you solve your problems, right? And catalysts just need to understand how to solve problems, because once you can understand how to solve problems, any problem that comes is the same approach. It's like addition. Once you know how to do addition, whether it's 1 + 1 or 1,000 + 1,000 or 50 million + 50 million, you can find that, right? So I feel like if I was talking to a different audience and I wasn't talking to catalysts, but I was talking to implementers. Catalysts are problem solvers. We are not the people that someone will come and tell you the solution for you to do, as you are the head of that EduSport program, or as you have instituted a vision for yourself in that EduSport program. It's not anyone's job to deliver that impact. It's your job to deliver that impact. It's not anyone's job to make a change in those children's lives. Like, those children really get into the mindset that, okay, this is on me. So I'm going to be diligent in how I solve every problem I come across by diagnosing the problem and just slowly connecting the dots. That's all the education that we need. That's all, like, because anything that I can tell you on how to deploy social media for your literacy program, you can go on meta.ai, ChatGPT, and they will give you even more brilliant answers than I can. However, if you are a poor diagnoser of your problems. Even ChatGPT cannot help you because you haven't actually figured out. So you go to ChatGPT and say, help me, my child is 7, they cannot read, they don't like to read, help me. They'll give you very broad things versus right now, my challenge is that you see this book. This is the book that my son is, he's 7, but by force, look at the book. Even me, I think it was class 6 before I was reading a book like this. He's in class 1. Look at my poor child, what I'm forcing on him. So now when we go to the library, last time we went, I think we picked like 7 of these books. Now they are there, he's not reading because I've pushed him too much. But what he wants to read is the comics. And we borrow some of the comics, but the last time I was in a hurry, I pushed him too much, right? So that's the thing I have to diagnose. So now that he's not reading, someone's like, oh, he doesn't like to read anymore. But that's not the problem. So I need to go to technology with the question of, okay, what he has liked to read before, now he doesn't like to read these particular books. So what exactly is the problem? The problem is he may not like what I'm giving him. So let me find out from him what he likes. What has he liked in the past? What were his favorite books? So then I can go on ChatGPT, which is technology, and say, my year-old loved this book. Recommend me 5 books that are just like this. But I don't have access to buy these books. So recommend me books that I can find online. Free. And then that will give you laser focused answer. And that answer will solve the problem. But I had to go the extra mile in diagnosing my problem for me to be able to get that solution.
Thank you, Deborah. So there's a question in the chat. It says, any thoughts on literacy for children with learning difficulties? Example, dyslexia.
Yeah. So learning difficulties are an unfortunate challenge to our task of wanting children to read. And that's another thing that technology can be brilliant at. There are parents who are online sharing their journeys, helping their children fall in love with, reading or literacy in spite of their challenges. So that would be what I would do. I would go online and follow actual people. Sometimes you can read things, but I would go online and follow actual people who have done what I've done. And then as I follow them and I start to implement, and I have specific challenges, I go and I find answers to those specific challenges. So I go online and they say, oh, if you have a child with dyslexia, the first thing you have to do is maybe teach them how to love stories, audio stories, right? So you first get them to fall in love by listening to the stories. Then as they're listening, maybe you had a challenge that they can't focus. So maybe they go online and then you find, or if they can't focus, maybe find shorter stories. Or maybe as they are listening to the stories, you choose them, right? You pause it and you ask them questions about it, etc. Like the solutions are there. So I would probably find people who have those same challenges and consume a lot of their content. And when I have specific roadblocks, I go online and I find specific solutions to those roadblocks.
Thank you so much. Once again, please, do we have any questions for Deborah? Okay, so Deborah would have to leave us because she's joining another meeting. So Deborah, I would open the floor for any final words you have for us before you take your leave.
Yeah, I think the final thing I'll just add very quickly is that if we were each asked to name a change maker in our lives, we would probably come up with names like Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, change maker. Let's see, Martin Luther King. We name these big names because they've been in the limelight. But a change maker is someone who changes the course of history by caring enough about someone or a problem and being able to make an impact in that problem. And that's the opportunity we have working in an organization or supporting an organization like Edgysport, because you have the future in your hands. The children that you're impacting are the future. So I just want to really encourage us to be diligent in how we go about implementing our solutions, and to be relentless in looking for solutions. There's no such thing as it's not working or they don't like it. There's only such thing as there's a medicine for every ailment. Perhaps you're applying the wrong medicine and you are the doctor. So if you don't give the right medicine, you cannot solve that problem for the child. So I really just want to encourage us to understand that we are empowered. The solutions are all there. If we care enough and we are diligent enough, the children that we have in our care can change the world, and we will have changed the world through them. So far, yeah. And I promised Levi that I would let him come and share for just 30 minutes why he likes books and how other children can like books. So he'll join us for just a few minutes. Levi, please come quickly. Swallow what you have mouth, please. Swallow. Introduce yourself.
Hello. So my name is Levi.
I'm Cynthia.
And you like reading?
Yeah.
What do you like about books?
Like how the author draw. They draw nicely. They make words. They do adventures inside.
And first, you didn't always like reading, right? There was a time like I was just forcing you. You didn't really like it, and then one day you realized that, oh, when I'm reading, it's like watching a movie because you can have your own adventure, right? How did that happen for you?
Well, it was like the day I realized it was like it was.
Don't wrap your eyes. Be focused so that everyone can hear you. Speak clearly.
It was like everything was interesting. It was like a movie, watching TV, and it was really nice reading books.
But before, why wasn't it nice before?
Because it was like I didn't really like to read because I had other stuff to do.
And then why do you like books now?
Because it feels like you're in an adventure.
And it's interesting for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the people on the call, I told you about Edgysport, right? So Edgysport is the organization in Ghana. They're helping young children to learn how to read. And the people on the call, they are the volunteers. And they are the change makers. They're changing the life of the children. What can you tell them anything that can help them to understand children? Because you're a child, maybe you can share your perspective so that they know how to also help the other children in Ghana.
But for example, a friend named Inkunim, he doesn't really like his book. But if you give him movies and then maybe books will work, and then maybe he'll read books and then everything will be fine. He'll be able to understand the books.
So how can they help the children? How can they actually help children?
Like they can talk to the parents.
Okay.
And you can help the parents have ideas. You can talk to the children. You can talk to them if they like books or not. Then if
you talk to them and they say, "Oh, I don't like books. I don't like books," what can you do?
Well, I can give them. They can do word games first, and then they'll start wanting. Then they'll start reading. They'll start reading.
And through the word games, it will help them to start to read. And then once they start reading, that will make it interesting for them.
Yeah.
It looks like everything that you're saying, the bottom line is that we have to be interested in the children and to know them to be able to help them, right? So do you think that if we know the children well, then we can help them?
Yeah.
So that's the solution. I've got a great solution. Levi has solved all the world problems for us. Thank you so much. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Levi. Thank you for joining us. And thank you so much, Deborah, for the wealth of information and the direction you have given us to create laser-focused solutions for our sport. It's been an honor having you and hosting you. And we are so thankful that you made time of your busy schedule to honor our invitation. Thank you so much for joining the call.
My pleasure. Thank you guys.
All right, sure. So I hope bye. It was nice to see you. Bye, Levi. Okay, so we would move straight into announcements. Farida, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia, for that session. And it was really special having Levi with us. So we have another event coming up on Monday, and we would like to invite everyone here and those who are not here, so you can tell somebody to tell somebody that we have a very exciting Catalyze workshop on Monday, and it's on storytelling for impact. So we've encouraged literacy. So now let's learn how to tell stories so that we can also encourage our learners to also be interested in stories and want to tell their own stories as well. So please make it a date. It's 6 p.m. again on Monday. The links have been shared on our WhatsApp feeds if you are from EduSports. If you are not, it's on all our social media platforms if you're not from EduSports. So please join us. We'll be very happy to have you. Thank you. And also please follow us on social media. We are EduSports we're everywhere. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere that's you can think of. You'll find us there. Please follow us. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We've loved having you.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Farida, for the announcements. Yes, please, about the Monday session, make sure you join. It really is one of those dots that Deborah was talking about that will be necessary. So thanks again for joining us. It's been the EduSports Ignite Talk on bridging the literacy gap. I've been your host, Cynthia Kumasa. Thank you all and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are joining us from across the globe. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful day or night.
The same to you.
Sure. Thank you.